Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, and welcome back to Healing Aspirations with Amani. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a chemical engineer by profession and a holistic dental health coach by passion, and my mission is to help mothers heal their children's tooth decay and help them develop beautiful broad jaws with plenty of room for 32 resilient teeth. So, without further ado, in today's session, I really wanted to talk to you about xylitol. I get a lot of questions about xylitol, whether xylitol is something recommended, whether xylitol is something that's unsafe. And so what I wanted to do is give you information that's going to help you make the right decision for you and your child, inshallah. So let's talk about it without further ado, a xylitol primer. So what is xylitol? Why is it often recommended? And can it actually help you with your child's tooth decay issues? So first of all, I want to give you a little bit of background about xylitol, okay? Like I said, often this is a subject that is really polarized, right? You have people that are really big proponents of xylitol and others that are really against it. And so what I wanted to say is I personally used to be in the anti-xylitol camp. I used to think it was nothing, it was something that you shouldn't be using. And one thing I always tell for my clients is I'm constantly researching and looking into holistic dental health because it's a big passion of mine. I've been doing this for more than a decade with the mouth-body connection. And so one thing I really wanted to do for myself is to be really objective, and also that I do not hesitate to change my mind on something, provided that I've come across research that says otherwise. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, I used to be with the anti-xylitol camp, and not so much anymore. And so I wanted to share with you a few different things. But again, one thing that you really have to keep in mind is with anything, right? Context is important, right? One thing you have to keep in mind as a mother is, I know it's so hard when you're dealing with cavities with your child's mouth and you just want answers and you just want results like it was yesterday, right? And what I'm here to tell you is I really want you to open up to the fact that what might work for your son might not be the same thing that worked for your friend's daughter, right? And vice versa. So you really actually need to be a little bit more flexible when it comes to healing cavities, because at the end of the day, the person who is most flexible is the one who controls the system, right? This is one of the tenets of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, the 14 presuppositions of NLP. Anyhow, going on with xylitol. By the way, if you're watching this live, please type live in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I know there's some of you that are watching it live right now. And if you're watching the replay, just type replay in the comments. I'd love to hear from you and let me know what your biggest takeaways are so far. Awesome. So great to see you, Bryden. Awesome. So I will be in touch with you. I will talk shortly in a bit after I discuss xylitol about the Healthy Mouth Academy, inshallah, God willing. So back to xylitol. One thing I want to do is I want to go over the risks with using this product. And then I also want to go with the benefits, right? Whenever you're going to be using something, you really want to do this sort of balance of what are the risks and what are the benefits of using this product so you can make an informed decision. So the first thing you want to keep in mind with xylitol is that it can be a potentially GMO product, a genetically modified organism-based product, right? And there's always going to be the argument, there's always going to be the scientists that say there's absolutely no difference between xylitol that's made from corn or xylitol that's made from birch, right? So the thing is with xylitol that's made from corn, right, is most corn is actually GMO, right? So historically, if you look at the history of xylitol, it was actually made from birch trees. Now, for me, I'm going to give you my perspective on things. I personally don't want to be a guinea pig for any sort of GMO product. You know what I mean? And so it's super easy to avoid that first risk of, you know, xylitol being a GMO ingredient. Just make sure you're not using xylitol that's coming from corn, right? Be sure that it's using it that is sourced from birch. That's the first risk. Second risk is that it's considered a highly processed product. Now, there is the argument that, you know, we make 15 grams of xylitol within our bodies, as explained by Dr. Eli Phillips in her book, Kiss Your Dentist Goodbye. And this is something that's known. However, you know, if you look at the science behind xylitol, we know that it's actually made by hydrogenating xylan, which is a plant cellulose, okay? And so xylitol isn't like a natural made 100% sugar like honey or maple syrup, right? It's not like you can go up to a birch tree and start tapping it and, you know, some you get this sap that you can just boil down into xylitol. That's not how it works. So, and then I know that if you're someone who is holistic and into natural things, as soon as you hear the word hydrogenation, you're like, oh my God, like, you know, you're thinking of things like hydrogenated vegetable oils, like, you know what I mean? Like margarine or things like that. So that means, oh my God, I don't want to use xylitol because it's made through a hydrogenation process. The thing is with the hydrogenation process is it often uses metals as catalysts. So a catalyst is a product that's designed to help accelerate the process of something, right? So often they use metals, things like nickel or palladium or platinum. So based on research that I've done, it appears that as long as the xylitol is being manufactured in a place like the US or Canada, where I am, or Europe, then you're good to go, right? So really, really easy. Just make sure that the xylitol that you're using is made from birch trees and it's coming from America or Canada or Europe, okay? The third risk you have to keep in mind is that it is an actual prebiotic. And prebiotic is a substance that actually feeds the gut bacteria. So a lot of times what you might hear is people say, oh, you shouldn't be using xylitol because it'll actually like destroy your gut. It'll cause you leaky gut. And although there is some truth in a way to that, in a certain sense, the claim is actually pretty exaggerated. And I'll give you an example why. Now, if you think about any prebiotic, so let me know in the comments if you've ever eaten a yogurt that has like prebiotics in it, like inulin or FOS, fructooligosaccharides, or something like that, some sort of prebiotic. If you eat too much too fast, you're going to get some bloating. You're going to get issues like diarrhea. You're going to get some gas, right? This is normal because, like I said, a prebiotic feeds the gut bacteria. And so if you feed them too much too fast, you're going to get issues, right? It's actually a normal process. So it's not necessarily because, you know, xylitol is going to be ripping apart your insides. That's not what's happening. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to be careful if you're going to be using something like xylitol or any prebiotic for that matter, right? You can actually use prebiotics as a gut healing regimen because we're living in a day and age where we have severely compromised gut. Our microbiome is really deficient. We don't really have a lot of variety of gut bacteria in our intestines. And so part of healing the gut is actually feeding that gut bacteria properly. And, excuse me, you want to make sure that you do it in a slow way. You don't want to overdo it too quickly, right? We have this thing, it's just human nature. Well, if a little bit does good, you know, if I get a little bit of benefit from a little bit, then if I, you know, use more, I'm going to get a lot more benefit, or I'm going to accelerate my results. And that's just the hasty nature of us humans. We just want results fast and we think more is better, but that's not necessarily the case. And so this is why when it comes to prebiotics and gut health, just backtracking a little bit, people that are like, you know, experts in things like the FODMAPs diet, you know, or SIBO, or advocates of the GAPS diet or the specific carbohydrate diet, right, SCD, right, they really suggest that you stay away from things like xylitol, right? And just because you want to avoid it because feeding that resistant bacteria in the gut, you don't want to do that because you actually want to lower that, you know, pathogenic bacteria count, okay? And so one thing I do caution is if you are going to use xylitol, you want to use it in small quantities and like I said, use small quantities and slowly and build your way up slowly. You don't want to go too much too fast, okay? So you can lower the likelihood that you're going to have issues with gas and bloating and diarrhea. Now, so that's one thing I wanted to mention. Before I forget, if you have a dog, you want to be careful because xylitol is toxic to dogs, right? A lot of times just because something is safe for humans doesn't necessarily mean it's safe for animals. And so I just want to make sure that you know about that in case you don't. So I don't want you to be, for example, eating some sort of homemade dessert that you decided to make with xylitol. And that's actually something I don't really recommend, to be honest. And then, you know, they take a lick of it and then, you know, it can cause some serious, you know, injury or death, okay? So I just want to put that out there. So, basically, those are the different types of risks. Now, let's talk about the benefits, right? Because it's not all, right? There's always, when you're looking at things, like I said, you want to make a decision based on looking at all the pros and cons. So that same argument that it's a prebiotic is actually also a plus, right? That it does feed bacteria, right? So a lot of times what is often recommended when you're trying to remineralize your child's teeth is to use xylitol frequently throughout the day, right? What's often recommended is, expose your child to, for example, 5 to 8 exposures of xylitol throughout the day, okay? Which can be really, really great. But again, I caution you that when you start something like that, you want to start with a very small quantity and just see how your child is dealing with it, how's their body reacting to it, right? If you're noticing a lot of diarrhea or a lot of bloating, you really want to back off that dose and start really, really small. And for some people, again, this is why I want to say context is important. Just because something works for another mama's kid doesn't mean it's going to work for you, right? So for some moms that I've spoken with, or I've seen, they can't have their child consume any type of xylitol because they just can't tolerate it at all. And so if you can't use it, I'm going to explain to you what are the different ways that you can use it internally like that, then there are other ways. And I'm going to give you some troubleshooting tips on how to use it properly. So, I want you to be open to the fact that this might be a great addition for you and it might not, right? You have to really look at things in an individualized manner. The benefit about it, so you wonder, what, isn't it a sugar? How does this even actually work? Because I keep hearing online that xylitol helps with tooth decay. Can you please explain how, Amani? So, there's actually a lot of established articles explaining how xylitol, so it does actually work. There is some, proven benefits when it comes to tooth decay. And it all comes down to that Streptococcus mutans bacteria, right? So in the mouth, what ends up happening when you have, the S. mutans bacteria, it consumes the sugars and, it starts fermenting them, and then you get the acidity that results in cavities, right, in the mouth. And you can't have tooth decay unless there's a state of acidity. So what's interesting about xylitol is, although it is a sugar, the structure of it is different. And what it does is when the Streptococcus mutans bacteria eats it, they think it's going to be a source of energy, but it actually doesn't do that. It's not a fermentable sugar. And so what ends up happening is it doesn't contribute to the growth of the S. mutans bacteria in the mouth. So what ends up happening over time is the S. mutans bacteria becomes weaker, and so it doesn't cause as much harm, right? So you're actually, reducing that level of that pathogenic bacteria. The other thing that's cool about xylitol is it actually makes plaque less adhesive. It makes plaque less sticky on the teeth, okay? And, some studies have actually shown that, xylitol, when you're using it, it can actually cause a 50% reduction in plaque accumulation just by having it inside your mouth, right? And this is actually a big deal because the fact that xylitol can actually make plaque less sticky, this is a huge benefit in and of itself, okay? Now, the other thing it does is it supports remineralization of the actual tissue of the teeth, so enamel, okay? And how does this work is that what it does is the calcium and phosphorus ions in the saliva, it keeps them in that stable state so that they're readily available to remineralize our teeth, right? Because if you think about it, why do I always talk about alkaline saliva production is because, tooth decay can't happen unless you have really acidic saliva. And if you are using different ways, both internally and externally, to support alkaline saliva production, you're going to have a much better chance at really creating a dent in that tooth decay, issue in your child's mouth, okay? Now, so the way the xylitol, that if you look, I'm going to share with you a quote right now from the International Journal of Dentistry. It's titled "Sugar Alcohols, Caries Incidence and Remineralization of Caries Lesions: A Literature Review." And I quote, says, "It is important to observe, however, that the stabilizing effect of polyols, xylitol, on the calcium phosphate systems of the oral cavity is predominantly directed to the solubility of salivary calcium and phosphate, rendering their prolonged, dissolved, supersaturated state possible compared with the presence of, let's say, sucrose, which tends to initiate instantaneous precipitation of calcium and phosphate in saliva, thus eliminating a part of those substances from remineralization. The polyol's role in saliva and plaque fluid is one of the stabilization. Calcium and phosphate salts are stabilized in the presence of polyols." So you're like, what are you saying, Amani? I'm sorry, this is like the chemical engineer coming out of me. I'm like, Yeah, I remember this. So basically, do you remember let me know in the comments below if you remember this. In high school chemistry, when we took a salt and we dissolved it, and then it gets to a point where the solution becomes super saturated with the salt, and you reach a point called precipitation, where you can't dissolve any more salt and it just precipitates, right? It becomes, the salt becomes solid again. That's what they're talking about, right? So what xylitol does is it keeps the calcium and phosphate ions in that, dissolved state, so that your teeth are constantly being bathed in those soluble ions. Whereas with sugar, it causes them to immediately precipitate. So precipitate means they become solid and they're not really in that liquid state to bathe your teeth in that alkaline mineral liquid. So I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you remember that high school chemistry project or lab that we did. Anyhow, so that's basically how xylitol works. The other thing is, because also in alignment with that, is it helps you have a healthier mouth pH, right? The more you get your saliva in that alkaline state, the less time your teeth are sitting in that acid bath, which results in tooth decay. Okay, so when it comes why does this happen is not as a result of the xylitol in and of itself, but just because of the fact that the xylitol being in your mouth makes you salivate more. It makes you have more saliva, have more spit, right? And it's the saliva that balances the pH in our mouth. And this is why I'm a big proponent of using miswak, is because when you have it in your mouth, all the different compounds in it stimulate saliva production. And the more you stimulate that saliva, the better chance you have at keeping those teeth pearly white, inshallah, God willing. So again, you can see that there's all sorts of pros and cons. So you might be saying, so Amani, are you saying it's okay to consume xylitol? How should we use it? So to be honest, there's always that sugar demon inside us. So you really want to be careful from constantly consuming sweets and eating things that are going to make you crave. Because with sugar, it's kind of addictive, right? As soon as you eat it, then you want more and you want more and want more, right? So if you find, again, right, that's why it's with each person, you have to find what works for you, what works for your child. If you find that, using xylitol really makes you have strong sugar cravings, then you might want to back off and use it in a different way. And typically with xylitol, the way it's used, it's recommended to do things like using the granules themselves, or you can use things like xylitol-based gum. So what's really cool about that is, like I said, it stimulates that saliva production, alkalizes the saliva, kills that S. mutans bacteria, really great stuff, right? But let's say you find, like I said, it makes you crave sugar too much and you start binging on other types of forms of sugar, then you might want to reconsider. If, for example, you can't tolerate any amount of xylitol, and this really happens with people, they just can't, it just doesn't work for them, then there's a different way where you could use xylitol, what you might decide to do is just to rinse with xylitol. So create a strong xylitol paste solution and just swish your mouth with it several times a day. So you're still getting that 5 to 8 times of exposure of xylitol as recommended by dental health practitioners, but without actually consuming it inside your gut. So you're avoiding that excess gas and bloating and diarrhea, right? So you can do that. That would be a really good way to use it without, having those issues. But typically what is recommended is you want to get the most amount of benefit from xylitol, 5 to 8 exposures. So typically what you can do is give a piece of gum that's got xylitol to your child after every meal, right? You're alkalizing their saliva, you're removing the stickiness from inside their mouth, killing off that S. mutans bacteria after each meal, really great, right? And so there you go. If you eat 3 meals a day, there's three exposures right there. If you have a snack, here's a 4th exposure. And what you can do is do it before bed, or you can do as soon as they wake up in the morning, because typically when you first wake up in the morning, it's after spending all night with reduced saliva, because typically our saliva production decreases drastically while we're sleeping. And it becomes more so the more dehydrated you are. So be sure, any recommendation I give, the first and foremost is make sure that you are drinking enough water, because you can't produce enough spit and saliva unless you have some H2O in your system, okay? So like I said, so you can do it, before you go to bed, first thing in the morning, there's 2, 1 for each meal and snack, and there you go, you've got all those different exposures, right? So once at night, once in the morning. and 1, 2, 3, 4 for the exposures with the meals, and maybe put in another one, and there you go. You've got those exposures, okay? So I hope this helps. Let me know in the comments, what are your biggest takeaways about xylitol? Have you used it before yourself? What has been your experience with it? And are you open to trying it out? So without further ado, I wanted to talk to you about the Healthy Mouth Academy. So I know a lot of you have spoken with me. You know that I hold the Heal Your Mouth, Heal Your Body Mastermind, which is a high-level mastermind for women that want a comprehensive system on how to heal their children's tooth decay using a multidisciplinary approach. And I know given this time right now with all the things that are going on, you might not be ready to invest at such a high level. And so I wanted to offer, based on request, an opportunity for you to enroll in my new program called the Healthy Mouth Academy, which gives you a lot of value at a much lower price point. So what it is, it's based on my system that I've designed myself to help me heal my children's tooth decay and break free from the cycle of drill, fill, and bill at the dentist, right? You really want to look at the root cause of the issues and use an inside-out approach to promote healing. So if this interests you, inshallah, God willing, type I want a healthy mouth emoji in the comments below, and I will reach out to you. I'm going to be holding an info session, inshallah, online to show you what you're going to be getting with this program and how it's going to help you to actually catapult your results, because I know you're getting frustrated without access to, you know, dentists, that you really want something that is actually structured and it's going to help you lay that solid foundation of healing, right? I know a lot of you are getting frustrated with doing Google searches, you know, Dr. Google, what should I do here? You know, Facebook searches, you're posting the same question in different types of groups so you can see what types of answers are out there. And it's causing you a lot of anxiety, right? Let me know in the comments. I know you're frustrated, like you're staying up at night, researching online different types of strategies that you can use with your child, randomly trying different types of remineralizing toothpastes or expensive supplements that may or may not work. And you're not sure whether you should go with that dental procedure that your dentist is recommending, or that maybe you can do a wait and see approach, right? And so you feel like you're lost, right? And you don't know what to do. And you just want, the knowledge, you want guidance, you want mentorship from a mother who's been there through the exact same thing as you before, not only once, but twice. I've been able to heal my children's tooth decay, both of them, using the same approach. And it was after, dentists were telling me to actually drill and fill them, and I didn't have to do that. So if it's possible for me, I'm telling you it's possible for you. And I'm giving you this opportunity to enroll at a lower price point where you can still get a lot of value and make a real dent in healing your child's teeth, inshallah. With that, thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you that are in the Tooth Decay and Airway Support Group for Moms, I'm going to be holding the live Q&A session in there, right now, just to go through the different questions that have been posted recently in the groups and in the group, and give you some feedback and some things to kind of let you think outside the box, right? Instead of thinking always about how. I'm going to show you why it's more important for you to ask that why, because once you know that why, the how becomes easy, and it's simply a matter of executing your plan. So thank you so much. I'll see you inside. With that, keep on smiling because it looks great on you. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you.